Welcome back, traveler. Tonight, we go further than we have ever gone, back beyond Rome, beyond Greece, back 4,500 years, to Egypt and the river that made her. There is nothing you need to do now, nothing to remember, and nothing to follow. The story asks nothing of you. It flows, like the river itself, whether anyone watches or not. If your eyes are heavy, let them close. The Nile has carried sleepers on its banks for longer than almost anything human, and it will carry you tonight. Wherever you drift off, the river will still be moving, calm and dark and patient, whenever you return. Take a slow breath in, and let it go. Feel your body grow heavy, the way the light grows heavy over the western desert at the end of the day. The fishing boats are coming in. The heat is leaving the stones. And far away, and very long ago, the oldest country in the world is settling into night. Let us begin. Imagine that it is night on the Nile, in the age of the pharaohs, and you are drifting downstream on a slow wooden boat, with the current doing all the work. The river is wide here, and utterly calm, and it is carrying the sky. Every star has its twin in the water. The moon lies on the surface ahead of you like a plate of hammered silver, always the same distance away, gliding as you glide. On either side, the banks are low and black, fringed with palms, and beyond the palms, you can feel rather than see the fields, breathing out the day's warmth, the smell of water on dry earth, of green things growing in the dark. The Egyptians had a saying, so old that even to them it was old. Egypt is the gift of the Nile. And drifting here, you understand it not as geography, but as something felt in the body. The whole country is only this. A ribbon of black, living soil, a few miles wide, on either side of one river, with 1,000 miles of bone-dried desert standing back from it on both sides, red and silent, kept at bay by water. Green and red, life and stillness, running side by side for the whole length of a civilization, and the border between them so sharp, people said, that you could stand with 1 foot in a wheat field and 1 foot on the sand of eternity. Every year, in the season they called Hatshepsut, the river rose. Far away in mountains no Egyptian had ever seen, rains fell, and the river gathered them and brought them down, swelling gently, spilling over its banks, and laying across the fields a new blanket of black silt, soft and rich, the finest topsoil on earth, delivered to every farmer's door while he slept. The flood was not a disaster here. It was the calendar, the economy, the religion, and the lullaby, all at once. Fields drowned quietly for a season, and rose again fed for a year. The whole country learned its deepest habit from this. Do not fear the rising dark. It is how the fields are fed. Sleep is your hess. Let it come up over you tonight the same way, slow, warm, bringing the good soil. The boat rocks, just perceptibly once, and settles. Somewhere off the bow, a fish touches the surface, one soft circle spreading. The steersman at the stern, a silhouette against the star-silvered water, makes a small correction with the steering oar and goes back to his thoughts. He has made this run, Thebes to the Delta, more times than he can count, and he does it the way you breathe, without watching himself do it. The Egyptians divided their year by this river into 3 seasons only, and the names are a lullaby by themselves. Ahet, the inundation, when the water rose and the land rested. Peret, the emergence, when the fields came out of the flood and the planting began. Shamu, the harvest, the dry bright months of gathering in. Flood, growth, harvest, and then the rising water again, around and around, a wheel with 3 spokes turning at the speed of a year. No Egyptian ever needed to ask what time it was in any sense that mattered. The river was the clock, the calendar was the river, and the whole of life fit inside that, turning the way your breathing fits inside a night's sleep. Rise and emerge and gather, rise and emerge and gather, as many times as needed, forever. Along the eastern bank, a village is asleep behind its palms. Houses of mud brick, flat-roofed, warm all night from the day's sun, and on the roofs, whole families sleeping in the open air, as Egyptians always have in the hot months, under woven covers, under the enormous sky. A baby, a grandmother, a dog, all in one warm constellation on one roof, and 100 roofs like it in this village, and 10,000 villages like it along the river. The whole of Egypt sleeps within earshot of moving water. It is perhaps why the country's gods were so calm, and its art so peaceful, and its dead so unafraid. Feel your own roof of stars, wherever you are, the same sky, many of the very same stars in nearly the same places. 4,500 years is a long time for us, and nothing at all for them. The Egyptians watched those stars closely and gently. Priests on temple roofs marked their risings all night, every night, for thousands of years, and steered the calendar by them. When Sirius, the brightest of all, rose just before the sun after 70 days away, the priests knew the flood was coming, and the new year with it, and word went down the river faster than the water. The star is coming up now, they would say, and everyone understood. Help is on the way, the fields will be fed. You could build a very restful theology on that, and they did. Drift on. The river bends, slowly, the way rivers do, taking a mile to change its mind, and the moonlight swings gently from one side of the deck to the other, unhurried, like a sleeper turning over. On the western bank now, dark against the stars, stand the shapes this river paid for. A temple pylon, huge and quiet, its flagpoles bare for the night. Beyond it, at the desert's edge, where the green gives way to sand, the low-domed tombs of the village's ancestors, whitewashed, moonlit, facing the sunset as the dead here always face. The Egyptians kept their dead close, and on the west, the sunset side, the way you might keep a photograph facing the evening window. Every night the sun died in the west, and every morning it was born again in the east, and the dead were simply travelers on that same round, out with the sun tonight, back with it, in some form, forever. Nowhere else has death ever been arranged so much like bedtime. The sun sets, the sun rises. Sleep in between is not an ending. It never has been. Let that oldest of all arrangements hold you a moment, as it held them for 3,000 years. Downstream, a night fisherman is out among the reeds in a boat made of bundled papyrus, light as a leaf. He has set his nets and now he waits, doing the ancient work of waiting, a cake of bread beside him, his line looped around one toe in the old style, so that he can doze and still be woken by a fish. The reeds around him tick and whisper with the small lies of the riverbank. Herons folded up for the night, frogs keeping the low pulse of the dark going, the occasional heavy sigh of water against mud that might be a crocodile minding its own business, and is anyway far off, and always was. The fisherman is not afraid of the river at night. It is his house. He was born within sound of it, and has never once slept beyond its reach. The current carries you past him, and he lifts one hand from the gunway, unhurried, the river greeting that is half wave and half blessing, and you are past, and he returns to his waiting, and the reeds close over the side of him like a curtain. Ahead, hours away yet, the river will braid itself into the delta, splitting and splitting again into green channels, widening toward the sea. But you will not reach the sea tonight, and you are not meant to. Tonight is for the drifting itself, the oldest transportation on earth, the method by which everything in this story moved, grain and granite, letters and armies, brides and coffins, all of it riding this same current, at this same speed, which is the speed of falling asleep. The boat you are riding is worth a drowsy look of its own, because everything about it is river-taught. Her planks are short lengths of local acacia, jointed and pegged like fine furniture, because Egypt has no tall timber, and learned to build ships the way it built everything, patiently, out of what the valley gave. Her great rectangular sail is furled for the night, since the wind here blows from the north, upriver, and the current runs downriver, so that all Nile sailing is one simple, beautiful arrangement. Raise the sail to go south, spread your arms to the wind. Drop it and drift to go north, lie back on the current. The hieroglyph for traveling south is a boat with its sail up. The hieroglyph for north is a boat with bare mast, drifting, exactly as you are drifting now. You are not only on the river tonight, you are inside the writing. Amidships, under a reed awning, the cargo rides in the dark, and it is the usual cargo, which is to say, the whole country in miniature. Jars of Delta wine sealed with mud stamps. Bolts of linen, fine as breath, woven by village women whose looms click through every Egyptian noon. Sacks of emmer wheat and barley, the two pillars of everything. A crate of dried fish, a coil of new rope, a bundle of papyrus stalks going upriver to become, in some temple workshop, the pages of a book of the dead. And tucked by the mast, the boatman's own things, bread in a cloth, a jar of beer, an extra cloak, a small painted amulet of the god Bez, snub and grinning. Protector of sleepers, hung where the steersman can see it, because the crew of this boat, like every crew on this river, are village men who know exactly which gods matter at night, and Bess, friend of beds and babies, is the one on duty. The steersman trades places with his brother, a murmur, a hand on a shoulder, and settles down on the deck mats to sleep. The boat does not notice. The river does not notice. The stars ride the water, and the water carries them without spilling one. Somewhere along this reach, the river passes one of its oldest servants, a Nilometer, a stone stairway descending into the water inside a quiet well, its steps marked with the measuring lines. Every district has one, and every day of the rising season, a priest or an official walks down those wet steps by lamplight, reads the level against the marks, and sends the number downstream. The whole country breathes with that number. Taxes are set by it, rations planned by it, prayers calibrated to it. Tonight the reading is good, has been good all season, and the man who took it is asleep with the easy conscience of a bearer of good news. The stairway stands in the dark with the river resting on its stones, water lapping at the mark of plenty, the oldest good news in the world, repeating itself softly all night against the stone. And this is Egypt, before we have seen a single pyramid or spoken a single pharaoh's name. This was always most of Egypt, this exactly. Not the gold, not the temples, a dark river full of stars, moving at a walking pace through a sleeping green country, delivering everything, asking nothing, year after year after 1,000 years. Everything else in the story, everything we will visit tonight, was built on the back of this one gentle, endlessly repeated night. Stay with the current. In a while, far downstream, a glow will come up on the western bank, hundreds of small fires at the desert's edge, and above them, catching the moon on its new white sides, the largest thing human beings have ever built will rise out of the plateau at Giza. They are still building it. We will drift in quietly and watch the greatest construction site on earth put itself to bed. But there is no hurry. The river has never hurried once in its life, and look how far it has come. The glow on the western bank grows as you drift toward it, and resolves, fire by fire, into a city of builders. This is Giza, on the desert plateau above the river, in the reign of the pharaoh Khufu, around the year 2560 before our era. And rising over the fires, pale in the moonlight, immense beyond anything your eye knows how to accept, is the pyramid. It is perhaps 3/4 built tonight. The lower courses are already sheathed in white casing stone, polished limestone from the quarries across the river, and where the moon strikes them they shine like standing water. Above, the stepped core of the working levels climbs into the dark, and the long ramps wind up its flanks. Quiet now, the sledges parked, the ropes coiled, the whole gigantic labor lying down for the night. Let go, right away, of the old story of the whip. It was never true, and the ground itself has proven it. The people who built this were not slaves. Archaeologists have found their town, just there, south of the plateau, and read their lives out of it. They were farmers, mostly, working for the crown in organized crews, fed better than nearly anyone in the country, paid in bread and beer, the currency of Egypt, housed in dormitories, tended by physicians whose mended bones still show the skill. They came in rotations from every village on the river, worked their season, and went home with stories for the rest of their lives. The pyramid was not built out of anyone suffering. It was built the way a barn is raised, by everybody, for something everybody believed in, one season at a time for 20 years. And they named their crews the way ball teams are named. It is one of the most human things that survives from the whole ancient world, because the crews painted their names inside the monument, in places no one was ever meant to look, and there the names still are. Friends of Khufu, the drunkards of Menkaure on the neighboring pyramid a generation later. 4,500 years, and you can still hear the laughter in it, the rivalry, the pride of a good gang on a big job. Whoever painted that was not oppressed. He was on a crew, and his crew was the best one, and he wanted the stones themselves to know it. Across the river, on the eastern bank, the quarries of Tura sleep too, the source of that shining white casing stone, and the quarrymen's night is the same night in a different key. Galleries run into the limestone hills, propped and lamped by day, silent now, and outside them the cut blocks wait in ranks by the water for the flood season, when the river will come up to meet them and the barges will float them across. That was the deepest elegance of the whole project. The Nile did the heaviest lifting. Every year the flood turned the desert's edge into a harbor, and stones that 1,000 men could barely stir slid over the water like thoughts. The engineers planned by the calendar of the river, as everyone in this country plans everything, and the pyramid rose in step with the year itself, course by course, flood by flood, a building constructed, in a real sense, by patience wearing water's uniform. Listen to the sight now, at night. The sound is banked fires, and wind over sand, and from the workers' town below, the low murmur of 10,000 people finishing their evening. Bread ovens crackling down for the night, the big state bakeries that turn out loaves by the thousand. Beer being poured, thick and nourishing, more food than drink. Somewhere a work song is being retired for the evening, one voice carrying the last line alone, and laughter after it. The heroes of this story are going to bed. Feel the good tiredness of them, the deep, muscular, honest tiredness of people who move stone today and will move stone tomorrow, and whose sleep is the sleep of the justified. Borrow some of it. You have moved your own stones today, whatever they were. Up on the working levels, the night watch makes its round with a lamp, checking the sledge ropes, the water jars, the setting of the day's last stones. The mason's marks are everywhere in the lamplight, red ochre lines and levels, instructions from one shift to the next in a great slow conversation of stone. 2.25 million blocks, more or less, will pass through this conversation before it ends. On an average day, the crew set over 300 of them. A block every few minutes, all day for 2 decades, without hurry, without machinery beyond ropes and sledges and levers and the river, which floated the heavy granite down from Aswan, 500 miles, at walking pace, the way it floated you hear tonight. Patience, water, and many hands. That is the entire engineering secret of the largest building on Earth. The precision, though. The precision is where the mind lies back in wonder. The base of this pyramid is level, corner to distant corner, to within about 2 centimeters, the width of 2 fingers, across 13 acres. Its sides face the 4 directions of the compass so exactly that modern surveyors bring their instruments here just to shake their heads. The men who did this had string, and water, and the stars, and time, and cared. That is all, and that was enough. Somewhere in the workers' town tonight sleeps the old surveyor who keeps the whole thing true, an unhurried man, much consulted, who has spent 20 years being certain, and who checks his lines against the northern stars, the ones that never set, the ones the texts call the imperishable stars, the immortals. Down in the workers' town, take one house among the thousands, because the town remembers them house by house. This one belongs to a crew chief from a village in the delta, 3 rooms and a roof, and tonight he has visitors, his wife and small son, come up by barge for the month, as families did. The boy spent the whole evening on the roof, watching the ramps until dark took them, and has announced definitively that he will be a stone hauler, then a surveyor, then, upon consideration, the pharaoh. He is asleep now between his parents under one blanket, and his father lies awake a little, in the good tiredness, listening to the town settle, proud in the low-burning way of men on great works. He cannot read. He has never seen the king closer than a distant sunshade, and 45 centuries from tonight, tourists from nations unborn will stand where his scaffold stood and feel their hearts lift. Some of that lift is his. It always was. The pyramid's true foundation is this room, repeated 10,000 times, breathing in the dark. In the bakery rows, the ovens keep their heat the whole night through, great banks of them, because the morning shift eats early and the state does not run out of bread. The night baker on duty, an old man who prefers the quiet shift, sits in the warm doorway with a lamp, patching a basket, and around him the town smells settle into their night arrangement, ash and dough, river mud, donkeys, the faint everywhere sweetness of dates. A watchman's brazier crackles down the lane. 2 off-duty masons pass, arguing amiably in low voices about a wager on tomorrow's stone count, and the baker, without looking up, tells them both they are wrong and what the count will be, and he is, they will discover, exactly right. Old bakers on great works know everything. It comes with the flour. The pharaoh, Khufu, sleeps in his palace down by the river. History knows almost nothing sure about him, and the one little statue of him that survives, of all ironies, fits in the palm of a hand, 3 inches of ivory, the smallest portrait for the largest tomb. But this, at least, his monument says plainly. He believed, and his whole country believed with him, that a king well launched into the sky was a country safe forever, and that eternity was worth showing up for, season after season, with ropes and bread and your crew's name. The pyramid is not a monument to death. It never was. It is the largest goodnight ever said, a whole civilization tucking one man in, so thoroughly, so lovingly, that he would sleep safe until the end of the world. And it worked, in every way that matters. He is still there, in some sense, at the heart of it, and his name has been said every day, somewhere on earth, for 4,500 years, including just now by me to you at bedtime. The moon slides higher, and the shadow of the great unfinished thing lies out across the sand, longer than the building is tall, resting on the desert like a sundial's hand at the 1 hour when it has nothing to say. In a century, the plateau will hold 3 great pyramids and the Sphinx, and the fires of the builders will be gone, and the plateau will begin its long career of astonishing travelers, which has never had a single night off since. Greek tourists will come, and Roman ones, and every kind since, and all of them will stand where you are drifting now and go quiet in the same way. It is the oldest of the 7 wonders of the world, and the only one still standing. Everything else on the list fell down. The tomb of the well-tucked-in king outlasted them all. Sleep, the pyramid says, in the plainest language stone can speak, is safe. See how safe it can be made. See how much love can be piled around it. 4,500 years, and the sleeper is still undisturbed, and the stars still circle the apex, and the watch still goes around with its lamp. Down in the town, the last oven is banked, the last beer poured, the last of the friends of Khufu asleep in their rows, dreaming of nothing, or of stone, or of home villages upriver where the flood is coming soon to feed the fields. The great sight lies silent from base to summit. Tomorrow it will roar and sing again. Tonight it is what it will be forever after, the quietest place in Egypt, and the safest bed on earth. We drift on, downstream and north, leaving the white shine of it on the horizon behind us, toward the lights of the capital, the oldest great city in the world, Memphis, the city of the White Wall, where the workshops are closing and the harbor is asleep, and a very old civilization is, at this early date, still young. Memphis stands where the river valley opens its hand into the delta, at the balance point of the two lands, Upper Egypt upstream, Lower Egypt down, and it was founded, the priests will tell you, at the very beginning, by the first king, when he joined the two crowns into one. Whatever the truth of that, this much is sure. It is the oldest capital on earth, and by the time most cities in this world are founded, Memphis will already be ancient. Tonight, in the old kingdom's high noon, it is simply home to more people than have ever lived in one place before. Drift in along its waterfront in the dark. The harbor is a forest of masts, river barges and coasting ships, hulls of Lebanese cedar smelling of resin, tied 3 deep along the quays. Cargoes wait under matting for the morning, grain going north, wine coming south, copper from Sinai, ebony and incense trundled down from the far south through the markets of Nubia. A harbor watchman patrols with his dog, and the dog knows the route better than the man, and pauses at the usual corners before the man does. Above the waterfront rises the great enclosure that gives the city its name, the White Wall, the palace fortress of the kings, whitewashed so bright that by day it hurts the eye, and by moonlight it glows like something not quite of the earth. Within it, the offices of a state unlike anything the world has yet seen, and mostly asleep. Egypt at this hour is already what it will remain for 3 millennia, the best organized country in existence, run not by warriors but by scribes, quiet men with reed pens and endless lists, who can tell you the yield of every field in the valley and the level of the river at every station, and who are, tonight, the most contented sleepers in the city, because there is a deep, specific peace in the ledger that balances, and there's balance. If Egypt has a secret, it is these men, and their sons after them, 40 centuries of homework. In the scribal schools tomorrow, boys will copy out the old advice. Be a scribe, the texts say, with the fondness of every parent steering a child toward a good trade. The scribe arrives dry across the river of labor. His pen is his boat. It is the oldest career advice on earth, and it has not changed so very much. Walk up from the harbor into the city itself, through streets that have already been streets for 600 years. Mud, brick, and palm timber, whitewash and woven awnings, lanes just wide enough for 2 laden donkeys to disagree. The day market is folded away, but its smells keep the stalls places for morning, cumin and coriander, riverfish, onions, the sweet heaviness of dates. Behind garden walls, pomegranate and sycamore figs stand over little pools where the household ducks float asleep, heads under wings, drifting in slow circles like thoughts. In the workshop quarter, the embers of the day's industry are cooling. Here a coppersmith's furnace ticks as it contracts, remembering its heat. There a sculptor's workshop stands full of half-born statues, a seated scribe without his face yet, a noble couple complete to the knees, moonlight through the roof vents lying along polished granite shoulders. The sculptors of Memphis are the finest on earth and know it calmly, the way the river knows it is long. In their hands, this early, the style of Egypt has already settled into itself, that stillness, that poise, that deep composure that will hold, almost unchanged for 3,000 years, so that a statue carved tonight and one carved in Cleopatra's reign will greet each other across the millennia like brothers. No other people ever decided so early what beauty was and remained so happily decided. There is a lesson for the restless in it, somewhere, best considered lying down. Let the city's composure settle over you like it's moonlight. Nothing here doubts itself tonight. Near the temple of Ptah, patron of the city, god of craftsmen, who thought the world and spoke it into being, the night staff keep the small hours. Ptah's priests bank the sanctuary lamps, and in the sacred pool the moon floats among the lotus buds, which are closed for the night, holding tomorrow's blue inside them like a secret everyone already knows. In a side court, the apprentice whose turn it is to watch the water clock sits beside its soft perpetual dribble, the world's first clock, a bowl that leaks time at a lawful rate. And he watches the level fall past the marked hours with the profound, struggling solemnity of every young person ever assigned the night shift, and loses, gently, and sleeps, and time, unsupervised, continues anyway, as it has arranged to do. In a garden quarter near the temple, one household is still faintly awake, and it is a physician's house, because physicians' houses are the last lamps out in every city ever built. Egypt's doctors are already famous tonight, and will be sent for by foreign kings for 1,000 years, and their textbooks, copied and recopied, will survive for us to read. Case by case they go, in the world's first clinical voice, calm as the river. An ailment I will treat, an ailment I will contend with. An ailment not to be treated, which is the honest sentence, the one that made it medicine. Tonight the old doctor has seen his last caller, a mother with a feverish child, sent home with willow bark and honey and instructions, and, mostly, with the settling of her fear, which was the true treatment, then as now. He writes the case on his tablet by lamplight, washes his hands in the basin as the texts prescribe, and puts out the light. The world's longest night shift, 40 centuries and counting, is quietly one house older. Out at the desert rim west of the city, at Saqqara, the elder pyramid stands over its precinct, the step pyramid of Djoser, already a century old when Khufu's masons learned their trade, the first great building of stone in the history of the world. Its architect was Imhotep, chancellor, physician, priest, the first genius whose name we know, and his people never forgot him. 2,000 years after tonight, they will have made him a god outright, the patron of medicine and scribes, and students will leave offerings at his shrines before examinations, which may be the most enduringly relatable act in all of Egyptian religion. He sleeps somewhere out there himself, in a tomb no one has ever found, the first of the great sleepers of Saqqara, in ground so thick with tombs and time that the desert there is less a landscape than a library. And spare a thought, in passing, for the animals of Memphis, who keep more of the night than anyone. The temple cats of the goddess Bastet, sleek civil servants, are about their rounds. The sacred ibis stands one-legged in the temple pool, a hieroglyph of itself. In the palace stables, the king's hunting hounds sleep in a heap with their names, which we have, on their collars, Brave One, Reliable, North Wind, names 4,500 years old that any dog tonight would answer to. Egyptians named their animals, painted them into their tombs, curled them at the feet of their statues, and mourned them properly when the time came. It is one of the surest signs of how deeply gentle this civilization was, under all its granite. A people are truly known, someone should have carved somewhere, by whether their dogs are in their eternity. Egypt's are, all of them, by name. The city between the river and the tombs breathes slow. On 10,000 rooftops, Memphis sleeps in families, in rows, in the warm night air, exactly as the villages sleep, for a capital here is only a village that succeeded, and no Egyptian city ever forgot its village manners. A late flute somewhere near the harbor gives up its tune half-finished. The harbor dog completes the round on its own, the watchman having sat down somewhere companionable. The white wall holds the moon. Memphis will live longer than any capital in history. Kingdoms will rise and fall around it. The court will move away and come back and move away again, and Memphis will simply go on, revered, rebuilt, mother of cities, for 3,500 years, until, in the end, its stones walk off in barges to build a newcomer down the coast called Cairo, whose citizens tonight, in our own world, sleep on foundations quarried from this one. Cities die into other cities here, the way the sun dies into the west, to be up again by morning, wearing a different name. Nothing you love is ever quite lost in this country. That is its one great insistence, repeated in stone and story for 30 centuries. And tonight, drifting out of the old capital southward, upriver, into the long middle of Egypt's story, you may as well believe it. The river certainly does. Every long story has its low water, and Egypt's came when the old kingdom was very old, around the year 2180 before our era. The river itself, the faithful river, faltered. Year after year, the flood came up short. The rains far to the south had weakened, and the black land narrowed, and the granaries emptied, and the great calm state of the pyramid builders, which had seemed as permanent as the sun, found that nothing is. The kingdom loosened into pieces, province by province, each governor tending his own stretch of the valley, and for a century and a half there was no single Egypt, only Egypts, quarreling gently and sometimes not gently, while the texts of the age filled with a new voice, doubting, questioning, asking what anything was for. Historians call it the first intermediate period, which is history's way of saying a hard passage between two good sleeps. But hold this hard passage the way the night holds it, at a distance, softly, because down inside those disordered years, something quietly wonderful was happening, and it is the real story of this chapter. Eternity got democratized. In the Old Kingdom, the glorious afterlife had belonged, strictly speaking, to the king, with everyone else hoping for a place in his retinue. But when the center failed and the provinces went their own ways, the old royal spells and promises came loose too, and drifted outward like seed. Local governors began writing them inside their own coffins. Then well-off farmers. Then, in time, more or less anyone who could pay a village scribe. The texts that had launched Khufu toward the imperishable stars were painted, in cheerful provincial handwriting, inside the coffin lids of millers and boatmen and grandmothers, so that the dead of quite ordinary families now woke in the next world, with the words of kings above their faces. Whatever else the crisis broke, it broke the monopoly on forever. Eternity in Egypt was never again reserved for anybody. The night sky, so to speak, was open to general boarding. Let your breathing take that in. Hard times cracked the world, and hope leaked downward and reached everyone. That is not the worst thing to know at the bottom of any long night. And the river came back. It always came back. The rains recovered in the far south, the floods fattened, and out of the city of Thebes, upriver, a family of princes set about gathering the valley back into one hand. Around the year 2050, a king called Mentuhotep II finished the work, and Egypt was one country again, and the long convalescence began that historians call the Middle Kingdom, and that the Egyptians themselves, looking back ever after, called simply the Classical Age, the time when the language was at its finest, and the kings were at their wisest, and everything was, in memory at least, exactly as it should be. The Middle Kingdom is the quietest great age in Egyptian history, and for our purposes tonight, the most restful to visit. Its kings built pyramids again, more modest ones, of brick at the core, and worried, in the texts they left, about being good shepherds more than great gods. One of them wrote, or had written, instructions for his son that read like a tired father talking late at night. Be watchful, he says. Trust carefully. The heart of a king should be full of care for the small. And the great story everyone memorized from this age, the tale every schoolboy copied for 1,000 years, was not about conquest at all. It was about homesickness. It is called The Tale of Senue, and since it is the best-loved bedtime story of the entire ancient world, you should have it tonight briefly, the way a parent tells a long book short. Senua was a palace official who, overhearing dangerous news on the death of the old king, panicked and fled Egypt over the border into the lands of Syria. There he prospered mightily. A chieftain befriended him, gave him his daughter, gave him land, made him great. He fought a champion and won. His herds multiplied, his sons grew strong. He had, by every measure the world keeps, a wonderful life. And he could not sleep some nights for missing Egypt. Not the wealth of it, the feel of it, the river, the bread, the way the light fell. Above all, one fear wore at him as he aged, the fear of dying and being buried away from home in foreign ground without the proper words. And the new king of Egypt, hearing of him, wrote to him. And the letter, which generations of Egyptian children copied out until they knew it better than their own names, said, in essence, "Come home. You have grown old under a foreign sky. Come home, and we will give you a good burial, and you will be tucked into the ground you came from, among your own, with everything done rightly. Come home, Senue." And he came, an old man weeping at the border. And the king received him kindly, and dressed him in linen, and built him a tomb among the tombs of the court. And the story ends, this most beloved of all Egyptian stories, not with a battle or a wedding, but with a man falling asleep at home at last, entirely safe, every fear resolved. That is what this whole civilization meant by a happy ending. Being gathered in, being expected, having your place kept. Whoever you are, wherever today scattered you, the oldest story in the world is on your side tonight. Come home, it says, your place is kept. The Middle Kingdom's other great tenderness was words themselves, and one more of them belongs to this hour. From these centuries comes a text the scholars call a dialogue of a man with his soul, a man arguing in a hard year that life had grown too heavy, and his own soul talking him patiently back, and the soul's argument is not philosophy at all. It is the argument you would use with a friend at midnight. Stay, the lotus will open again. There is bread and beer and the river. Death is not to be courted, it will come in its own good time, like the fairy, and until then, sit down beside me. 4,000 years old, and it is exactly what the kind ones among us still say, at kitchen tables, at midnight, and it worked then too. The man stays. The text survives because someone kept copying it, generation after generation, which means it kept being needed and kept working. Keep it with tonight's collection. The oldest midnight conversation on earth ended with staying. Drift on that, upriver through the healed country. The fields are fat again under the moon. At the mouth of the Fayum, the engineers of the Middle Kingdom have tamed a whole lake to bank the flood in wet years and pay it out in dry ones, the first great water project of its kind, still faintly working 4,000 years later. In the border forts of Nubia, garrisons keep their watch and send their dispatches, and the dispatches survive and are mostly, blessedly, about nothing. All quiet. A patrol returned. 2 traders passed north with cattle. The desert dreamed of no one. Pass a town on the healed river and hear it keeping its ordinary night. A ferryman sleeps in his moored boat, paid in bread, dreaming in mid-river. On the temple quay, grain barges from the king's new works ride low and full, and the harbor master's tally sticks are bundled and locked away, the day accounted for. In the mayor's garden, frogs run the low pulse of the dark, the sound Egypt trusts most, because frogs mean water, and water means everything. And the hieroglyph for 100,000 is a tadpole for exactly that reason, abundance drawn from life. A woman who cannot sleep walks her infant along the roof under the stars, humming, and the lullaby she hums has words we actually have, 4,000 years old, found on a papyrus of spells for mother and child. Sleep, little one, it says in essence. The night is kind, Mother is here. The protectors stand around your bed like reeds. It scans to any tune. It always did. In the villages, the coffin makers paint the ceilings of their coffins with stars, 5-pointed, golden, row on row, so that every sleeper, however plain the box, lies under a private sky. Museums are full of them now, those little wooden heavens, and they are, all these centuries on, still among the most touching things a person can stand in front of. Someone always made sure the dead had stars. It was considered the least you could do. Out on the eastern desert roads, the mining expeditions of the good years are camped by their wells, turquoise parties bound for Sinai, and their expedition stones, which they carved at the mines and which survived, read like postcards from organized men. Year 19. All my crews came home safe, not a man lost, not a donkey lost. The commander who wrote that chose, with all eternity stone at his disposal, to be remembered for the donkeys. He has been, for 4,000 years, and deserves every year of it. The Middle Kingdom was full of such men, careful, provincial, proud of safe returns, and its greatness was exactly their kind, the greatness of things brought back whole. The Middle Kingdom will fade in its turn, softly, the way it lived. But nothing after it will ever unlearn what these centuries settled. That Egypt can break and mend, that the river can fail and return, that eternity belongs to everyone, and the classical sentences are already written, and homesickness is the strongest force in the world, and every ceiling, however humble, can be a sky. Sleep now toward the next stage, which comes up the river like a bright ship. Egypt is about to become an empire, and a woman is about to wear the double crown, and the smell of incense trees is about to arrive on the night wind from the most famous voyage in Egyptian history. Thebes, now, in the High New Kingdom, around the year 1470 before our era, and Egypt is not merely a country anymore, but the great power of the known world, rich beyond old dreaming, her borders pushed far south and far northeast, tribute flowing in like a second Nile. And on the throne of the two lands, wearing the double crown, ruling as pharaoh in the fullest sense, with the throne name, Mat-Kare, is a woman. Her name is Hatshepsut. She came to power as regent for a small nephew, and, with the backing of the temples and the treasury, and, evidently, most of the people who mattered, simply continued, year after year, until continuing had become reigning. The monuments show her in the full regalia of kingship, because Pharaoh was in office with only one costume, and she wore the office. What matters for our night is what kind of reign it was. 22 years, and they were, above almost any other stretch in the whole long story, peaceful. Egypt under Hatshepsut mostly did not march. It built and traded and gardened. Her wars were few and small. Her pride, the thing she chose to paint biggest on her own monument for eternity, was not a battlefield. It was a shopping trip. The most famous of all Egyptian expeditions, the voyage to Punt. Punt lay far to the south, down the Red Sea, toward the Horn of Africa, a land half real and half perfume in the Egyptian mind, the source of incense, the terrace of the god, they called it. In her 9th year, Hatshepsut sent 5 ships. Tonight, let us sail with them, because a night sea voyage under sail is one of the great sleeps of the world, and this is the loveliest one on record. The ships run south before a following wind, sails fat with it, rigging creaking its slow rope language. The Red Sea at night is black glass streaked with starlight, and the wake glows faintly behind each hull, stirred green fire, the sea's own lamplight. The sailors sleep in watches on deck among the coiled lines. The helmsman steers by a star over the masthead, and by the feel of the swell on the steering oar, and the swell is long and regular, the breathing of something enormous and friendly. Desert mountains slide by to starboard, pink by day, purple shadows now, utterly empty, and the ships slip along their coast for weeks, little wooden worlds of bread and rope and patience, going gently toward the frankincense. Let the swell take your own breathing. Long and slow, rise and settle. There has never been a machine for sleeping as good as a ship on a calm sea. And Punt received them kindly. That is the plain miracle of the story, carved in loving detail on the Queen's temple walls. No battle scene, no tribute rung out at spear point. The reliefs show the village of Punt on its stilts among the palms, the plump and hospitable Queen of Punt coming out to meet the strangers, the Egyptians spreading their trade goods, beads and bread and weapons, and the great exchange beginning, gold for incense, myrrh for linen, and everyone in the carvings looking enormously pleased. The expedition loaded ebony and ivory, gold and leopard skins, baboons for the temples, sacks of myrrh resin. And then the masterstroke, the detail every Egyptian remembered ever after. They took the trees, 31 living frankincense and myrrh trees, dug up whole, their root balls wrapped in baskets, watered and shaded and fussed over on deck for the whole voyage home, the first recorded botanical expedition in the history of the world. Sailors detailed to water trees at sea, a navy of gardeners, and they got them home alive, up the Red Sea and over the desert road and down the river to Thebes, and planted them in rows in the garden courts of the Queen's great temple. So that the smell of Punt, the smell of the horizon itself, breathed over the west bank of Thebes with every evening wind. The pits they were planted in are still there, cut in the rock terraces, tree by tree. Empires are usually remembered for what they took. This one voyage is remembered, above all, for what it kept alive on the way home. Thebes at the Queen's zenith is worth one lamplit look before the temple. The empire's tribute comes up the river's flow, and the city has become the treasury of the world. But what the house lists of these years show, house by house, is smaller and better. A gardener owning his plot, a weaver's widow leasing her loom and living decently. A sailor from the Punt fleet, home for good, keeping a tavern by the harbor with a myrrh sapling, of unofficial provenance, planted in a jar by the door, growing famously, the most sniffed tree in the port quarter. Peace prints itself in such ledgers. 22 years of no marching, and the whole valley smells faintly of incense and fresh whitewash, and the tavern sapling, against every rule of botany and customs law, thrives. The temple those trees perfumed is worth the last of this chapter, because many judges across many centuries have called it the most beautiful building in Egypt. Deir el-Bahri, it is called now. Djeser Geseru, they called it then, the Holy of Holies. It does not pile stone toward the sky like the pyramids. It lies back instead against a great golden cliff of the western mountain, in 3 long colonnaded terraces, horizontal, serene, as if the architecture had decided to recline. Ramps rise gently from garden to garden. In the moonlight tonight it is silver and blue shadow, its colonnades like a phrase of quiet music repeated 3 times, and the myrrh trees stand in their rows on the terraces, casting small soft shadows, filling the night air of the west bank with the sweetness that will make this, for centuries, the most fragrant place of worship on earth. Her architect built it, Senenmut, the commoner who rose to stand at the Queen's right hand, tutor to her daughter, holder of 80 titles and, the gossip of 4,000 years insists, of her heart as well. Nobody knows. The stones keep the secret with perfect manners. What the stones do say is that he was very good, and that she trusted him completely, and that between them they left the western cliffs of Thebes more beautiful than they found them, which is as much as architecture can confess. Stay aboard the homeward fleet one more watch, because the return voyage is the sweetest leg of any journey, and the reliefs let us ride it. The ships run north now heavy and happy, low in the water with ebony and gold, the deck a small floating grove, the 31 trees in their baskets lashed along the center line. Watered at dawn and dusk by sailors who have come, in the way of sailors, to regard them as shipmates, each tree with its name, each with its partisans. The baboons, the temple's new choristers, have claimed the rigging and sleep aloft in furry knots, and the night watch has learned to check above before standing anywhere. In the stern, the expedition scribe writes up the day while it is fresh, quantities and wonders in the same steady hand. So many sacks of myrrh, so many logs of ebony, the marvels of Punt, no losses, all well. All well. The oldest entry in the world's logbooks, and the best one, and it will be carved in stone when they are home, where you have seen it. Hatshepsut sleeps tonight in her palace across the river, pharaoh of the calmest great reign in the story, her treasury full, her gardens growing, her ships home. History was not perfectly kind to her afterward. A later king shipped her image from many walls, for reasons scholars still argue about quietly, and for 3,000 years she was almost lost. But the temple was too beautiful to break, and the walls of Punt too charming, and in the end the modern age found her again, read her names back off the stone, and set her where she belongs among the greatest of the line. Erasure, it turns out, also sleeps, and beauty outweighs it. The evening wind comes off the desert, crosses the terraces, takes up the smell of the myrrh trees, and carries it out over the river, over the moored ferries, over the sleeping town. Breathe it as you drift. This is what a golden age smells like. Incense and river water, and cut stone still warm from the sun. Upstream, past the bend of the years, a stranger king is waiting, who will try to turn the whole country toward a single light. His city rises in a desert crescent, lives one human lifetime, and goes back to sleep forever. We will visit it gently. It is the strangest, briefest dream Egypt ever had. Halfway between Thebes and Memphis, the eastern cliffs stand back from the river in a great half circle, miles wide, a natural amphitheater of desert facing the water. And it was empty for all of time until one morning, around the year 1346 before our era, when boats began to land, and a young king with a long, strange, dreaming face stepped ashore and declared that this, precisely this, was the place the sun had chosen for itself. His name, when he landed, was Amenhotep IV, but he is not remembered by it, because within a few years he had changed it, and changed nearly everything else. He called himself Akhenaten, the effective spirit of the Aten, the disk of the sun, and he set about the boldest religious experiment of the ancient world. One God, only one, not among of Thebes with his rich old temples, not the crowded, comfortable pantheon that had watched over the valley for 2,000 years, but the visible sun alone, the bright disk itself, whose rays in the new art end in small hands, reaching down, touching everything, offering the sign of life to the king and the queen and, through them, everyone. Here in the desert crescent, he built his city from nothing at speed, Akhenaten, the horizon of the sun, and tonight, in the brief noon of its single lifetime, we drift through it in the dark. It is a long white city strung along a royal road that runs parallel to the river, palaces and temple courts and garden suburbs, all new, all bright, all just slightly hasty, mud brick under painted plaster, built quick as scenery, because the king was in a hurry to live inside his idea. His temples are the strangest sight of all to Egyptian eyes, for they have no roofs. The old gods dwelt in deep, dark sanctuaries, but the Aten's house is open to the sky, courts and courts of open air and offering tables, so that worship here is simply standing in the light. By day, that is. Tonight the roofless courts are open to the other congregation, and the offering tables stand bare under the whole slow wheel of the stars, and the theology, whatever the priests say, accommodates them beautifully. And the art. In this one reign, for just these few years, the ancient composure of Egyptian art relaxes, like a face when a formal photograph is over. The royal family is shown, for the first and last time in the whole long story, simply living. The king dandles his small daughters on his knee. The queen leans to kiss one. The couple ride together, hold hands, slump realistically. The queen is Nefertiti, whose painted portrait bust, made in the workshop of the sculptor Thutmose here in this city, in a studio we have found, on a street we have mapped, will one day be perhaps the most famous face on earth. It sits in a museum in Berlin tonight, in our world, gazing out with its one inlaid eye at the crowds, still calm, still perfect, still faintly amused after 34 centuries. She sleeps tonight, the living woman, somewhere in the palace along the royal road, unaware of being immortal, which is the only comfortable way to be immortal. From the palace balconies in the evening, the king and queen would appear and toss gold collars down to favorite officials, and the reliefs show the crowd's upturned faces. And in the workshops and the garden courts, a hymn was sung that the king himself is said to have composed, the great hymn to the Aten, and whatever one thinks of his revolution, the hymn is one of the most beautiful things the ancient world ever said at nightfall. When you set in the western horizon, it says to the sun, the earth is in darkness as if in death. Every lion comes forth from its den. But when dawn comes, you drive away the dark, and the two lands wake, and wash, and dress, and the whole earth does its work. Fish leap in the river before your face. The chick calls inside the egg, and you give it breath. How manifold are your works, hidden from sight, O sole God beside whom there is no other. Let the old hymn's rhythm settle you. Darkness, in that theology, was never evil. It was simply the world holding its breath fondly, waiting for the light to come back, certain that it would. That certainty is the entire hymn, and it is available tonight, without conversion, to anyone lying quietly in the dark. Walk the workman's village at the city's desert edge before the dream ends, because it outlived the dream and deserves its minute. It stands in its own small grid behind a wall, 70-odd houses on straight lanes, built by the state for the tomb cutters and their families, and the excavators who found it could walk its floors room by room. Here a loom's weights lying where the last cloth came off. There a bread oven with its ash. In one house, a painted niche for household gods, and the gods painted there are not the Aten at all, but Bes, the grinning protector of sleepers, and Talwaret, who watches over mothers, the little homely gods of bedroom and birth, thriving in the capital of the one god like window plants no decree can reach. Officially, there was only the disk. Domestically, there was whatever got the baby through the night. Every revolution in history has stopped at that same doorstep, and the excavation reports read, on this point, like a gentle smile. But the dream was one man wide. That was its trouble. The old temple stood dark and the old priesthoods idle and unpaid, and the empire's correspondence, which we have, hundreds of clay tablets from the city's records office, the Amarna letters, shows the wider world riding in with its worries while the king gazed at the light. Vassal princes beg for archers. Allied kings send gossip and ask, with ancient tact, why their last gifts were not reciprocated in gold. The horizon of the sun did not much answer its mail. Idealists seldom do. By night, in the brief living years, the city had 1 hour the reliefs never carved but the floor plans betray. The great palace's painted pavements, which the excavators found still bright, do not show gods or conquests. They show the marsh. Ducks rising out of papyrus, calves kicking through reeds, fish, lotus, dragonflies, a whole floor of riverbank life, laid where the royal family walked barefoot in the evenings. Whatever else the king rethought, he kept Egypt's oldest instinct, that paradise is not elsewhere, it is the marsh at dusk, the ordinary teeming edge of the ordinary river. His new religion lasted one reign. The ducks on the floor were 4,000 years old already, and are on museum walls tonight, still rising out of the painted reeds, outlasting the theology upstairs as floors generally do. Akhenaten reigned 17 years and died in his city, and the dream did not survive him by 5. The court packed, the offices emptied. The boy who inherited, a small son called Tutankhaten, was renamed Tutankhamun as the old gods came back, and the capital went home to Thebes, and the horizon of the sun was simply left whole standing in the desert silence. No sack, no fire. The city was not killed. It was only no longer believed in, which for cities is the gentler death. Wind moved into the palaces. Sand came up the royal road at its own pace and began patiently to make the beds. And because nothing came after, because no later city ever built on top of it, the horizon of the sun became, for archaeology, a miracle. One rain, sealed in sand. The painted floors of the palace, the sculptor's studio with the queen's face still on the shelf, the record's office with its letters, the workman's village with its bedrooms, all of it a single held breath of the 14th century before our era. Most ruins are lasagna, century pressed on century. Amarna is a snapshot, the one place where Egypt can be visited at a single moment, and the moment is this rain, this strange, bright, brief, doomed, tender experiment. Tonight the crescent of cliffs holds the dead city like a hand holding something finished. The roofless temples are full of stars. In the abandoned studio, the master's plaster faces sleep in rows on their shelf, the queen among them, waiting out the millennia with sculptural patience. Far off, a jackal crosses the royal road, the only traffic going about the desert's business. High in the eastern cliffs, the nobles' empty tombs look down over the plain, and carved in their doorways, still legible in the moonlight, the old hymn goes on saying what it says. The earth is in darkness, as if in death. Every line comes forth. The chick calls inside the egg. Dawn is coming, is always coming, was never once late in the whole history of the world. Sleep City. It is what you are best at now, and no city has ever done it more peacefully. And the boy who left this place, the small king with the changed name, rides south tonight in the royal barge toward Thebes, toward a short life and the longest fame of all. Toward a modest tomb in a desert valley that will make him, 3,000 years from now, the most famous Egyptian who ever lived, precisely because the world will forget where they put him. We will follow him there next, very quietly, into the Valley of the Kings. West of Thebes, behind the cliffs that hold Hatshepsut's terraces, there is a hidden desert valley with one road in. By day it bakes, silent, stone-colored, anonymous, which was the point. By night now, under the moon, it is a bowl of blue shadow beneath a natural pyramid, the peak the workmen called the Lady of the Summit, and scattered invisibly beneath its slopes, cut deep into the living rock, the kings of the empire lie asleep in their painted halls. This is the Valley of the Kings. The pyramids, you see, had one flaw. They announced themselves. A mountain of white stones saying, "Here sleeps a king," is also a mountain saying, "Here lies gold," and by the new kingdom every great pyramid had been visited, in the dark, by unofficial callers. So the empire's kings changed strategy entirely. Secrecy for majesty, their tombs went underground, unmarked in this guarded valley, long corridors descending to golden rooms, and the mountain above them, that pointed peak, served as the only pyramid for all of them together. The valley was chosen the way everything lasting in Egypt was chosen, by looking long and thinking of forever. It lies far enough from the river that no flood reaches it, deep enough in the folds of the western mountain that no casual traveler crosses it, and dry as the inside of a sealed jar, which the embalmers valued above everything. Above it stands that one pointed peak, El Corn, the horn, the natural pyramid, so that every king buried below could be said to lie beneath a pyramid after all, one that no dynasty had to quarry and no robber could dismantle. The goddess of the peak was a cobra, Meretseger, she who loved silence, the only deity in the whole crowded pantheon whose entire portfolio was quiet, worshipped by the tomb workmen in little shrines along the paths, and the theology of this chapter is therefore complete. Over the sleeping kings of the greatest empire of the age presides, forever, the patron saint of keeping your voice down. The men who cut those corridors are worth a whole night of their own, and can have a piece of this one. They lived in a purpose-built village over the ridge. Deir el-Medina it is called now, the best documented small town of the entire ancient world, because they were all unusually literate, and they threw away their notes, and the desert kept every scrap. Their attendance registers survive. Reasons for absence, name by name. Brewing beer, says one, an approved excuse. Stung by a scorpion. Wrapping the body of his mother. His wife was giving birth. Quarreled with his colleague. And the tomb service gave them all their days off, and the register notes it and closes. 40 centuries of workplaces later, the entries read like this morning's messages, and the men who wrote them walk out of the stone completely alive, brewing, quarreling, burying, waiting up. History is mostly such registers, when you are lucky enough to inherit them. The workman's village kept, among its 10,000 surviving scraps, its dreams, because Egyptians recorded dreams and consulted books about them, and the dream books survive. If a man sees himself looking out a window, good, his cry will be heard. If he sees the moon shining, forgiveness. If he dreams of drinking warm beer, unfortunate, discomfort approaches, which 40 centuries have not disproven. The village scribe kept such a book, and neighbors consulted him at his door in the mornings, the way neighbors have always traded dreams over fences. Tonight the whole village is busy manufacturing tomorrow's consultations, laid out in rows on their roofs, dreaming of windows and moons, and, here and there, regrettably of warm beer. The valley of the great sleepers is over the ridge, but the real dreaming, then as now, was always done at home. In the year 1323, before our era, more or less, those workmen received a rush job. The young king was dead, Tutankhamun, 19 or so, gone suddenly, heir to the strange Amarna years, restorer of the old gods, master of nothing much for very long. His own grand tomb was unfinished, so a smaller one, likely meant for a courtier, was made ready quickly, 4 modest rooms. The 70 days of embalming ran their course. The procession came over the ridge. The golden shrines were assembled around the nested golden coffins, the treasury filled with everything a boy might need forever. His chariots, his beds, his games, his childhood chair, bouquets of fresh flowers laid on the coffin last of all, and the doors were sealed, and the corridor filled with rubble, and the officials went home, and that, as far as the world was concerned, was that, a minor king, modestly housed. Within a couple of generations, workmen cutting a later, greater tomb just above dumped their stone chips directly over his doorway, burying the entrance beyond finding, beyond memory, beyond even rumor. The valley forgot him first of all its kings. Hold that thought as gently as it deserves. Being forgotten, which every sleeper mildly fears, turned out to be the luckiest thing that ever happened to him. Because the valley's memory was the robber's map. Every remembered tomb over the long insolvent centuries were found and emptied, kings tipped from their coffins by lamplight, gold melted anonymous. The priests of the late New Kingdom, despairing, finally gathered the great pharaohs up themselves, rewrapped them tenderly, labeled them in dockets like library books, and hid them in caches in the cliffs, where they slept in a heap, Ramesses beside Seti, until modern times. Every tomb known was a tomb lost. Only the forgotten door, under its 40 feet of chips, under the workmen's later huts, kept its seals. 3,200 years, while empires washed over the valley, Persian, Greek, Roman, Arab, Ottoman, the boy lay in the one bed in the whole necropolis that no one ever disturbed. And what did they seal in with him, besides the gold the world knows? Listen to the inventory's quiet corners, because they are the truest part. A trumpet of silver, which, when it was played once in the 20th century into a radio microphone, sent the sound of the 18th dynasty around the whole listening earth in an evening. Jars of honey and bowls of emmer, provisions for a journey measured in eternities. 130 walking sticks, worn, some of them with use, for the boy had a bad foot and needed them, and whoever packed the tomb packed every stick he had ever leaned on, the way a parent moving a child's room will not leave one thing behind. And on the innermost coffin, that wreath. Cornflowers bloom in Egypt in March and April, so the little flowers date his funeral to spring, and botanists reading the petals across 3,000 years can tell you the season of a grief. Spring then, the valley in flower below, and someone, before the lid closed, reaching in with a wreath. History does not record who. History did not need to. The valley tonight, in the deep of the new kingdom, knows none of that future. It only keeps its watch. The Medjay police patrol the ridge paths, and their braziers glow at the checkpoints. Over the crest, in the workmen's village, the lamps are out in the little stone houses, the chisels are lined up for mourning, and the foreman's ledger is closed on another day, all present except one, stung by a scorpion, recovering. The lady of the summit holds the moon on her point. Below, under the blue shadows, under the rubble, behind the sealed door with the necropolis stamp pressed into its plaster, jackal over 9 captives. The small rooms hold their gold in perfect darkness, and the fresh flowers on the coffin, cornflowers and olive leaves, picked that morning 3 millennia ago, begin their long, slow drying into the most touching bouquet in the history of the world, still recognizable, still keeping their color faintly, when the door finally opens again. 32 centuries the seals held, while above them the visits and dramas of the ages passed by within yards. That is the deepest sleep this series will ever tell of, so settle into the fact of it. Sleep can be that safe. Darkness can be that kind. A door can stay closed that long and open at last, not on ruin, but on wonder, on everything preserved, down to the flowers. We will stand at that opening ourselves before this night is done, in the last chapter, with the lamps of a much later century. For now, leave the valley as the ancients left it, walking backward out of respect for the sleepers, down the one road, out toward the river plain, where the moon is on the water and the great mortuary temples stand along the desert edge like ships drawn up on a beach. Somewhere behind you in the rock, a boy king dreams the one dream that came true in the whole valley, the old dream of the pyramid texts, spoken over every royal sleeper since Khufu. You shall not be forgotten. You shall wake renewed. Your name shall live. His brothers in the cliffs, the great ones, the conquerors, were saved by librarian priests, and sleep now in a museum in Cairo, honored, labeled, visited. He alone slept the whole night through in his own bed, and woke, in the 20th century, more famous than the sun. The last brazier on the ridge burns down. The lady of the summit turns the moon loose to the west. And upriver, in the greatest temple ever built, a new dynasty is lighting its lamps, and a red-haired young king is about to reign for 66 years and sign his name across the whole face of Egypt. The Great One is coming. Ramesses. We will meet him at Abu Simbel, under the stars, at the quietest hour of his very loud career. Far up the river, past the first cataract, deep in golden Nubia, the desert comes right down to the water, and out of one sandstone cliff on the western bank, 4 colossal seated figures face the sunrise, each of them 20 meters tall, 4 of the same man, arranged like a thought he could not stop having. This is Abu Simbel, and the man is Ramesses II, whom the whole world calls Ramesses the Great, and tonight, under the heavy southern stars, his 4 faces hold the starlight with the smile of someone who has, at last, absolutely nothing left to prove. He reigned 66 years, longer than most people of his age lived, so long that when he finally died at around 90, most of Egypt had never known another king, and there was a quiet panic in the land as if the sun had retired. He outlived 12 of his own crown princes. He fathered, the countess honestly attempted, perhaps 100 children. He built more than any pharaoh before or after, signed his name on more stone, and when short of time, signed it over other kings' names too, so deeply cut that no one after him could return the favor. Subtle he was not, but the river forgives him, and so tonight shall we, because behind all the granite shouting there was, by every honest reading, a genuinely great king, and a long, warm, mostly peaceful noon of the world. The battle he never stopped talking about came early, in his 5th year, at Kadesh in Syria, against the Hittite Empire, the other great power of the age. Let it be told once, quietly and put to bed. Marching north, young Ramesses was deceived by planted spies, ran ahead of his army with a single division, and was ambushed by the entire Hittite chariot force. Surrounded, his division breaking, the king found himself, by his own extremely repeated account, alone. And he did the one thing left. He charged. However, the historians finally apportion it, and they lean kindly. His personal charge broke a path, reinforcements arrived in time, and the day ended even, both armies mauled, the city untaken. He called it, on every wall wide enough to hold it, the greatest victory of all time. The Hittite records, discovered 32 centuries later, call it dryly a Hittite success. Empires disagreeing about a draw. The most human of all endings. But here is what actually deserves the stone, and got too little of it. 16 years after the battle, Egypt and the Hittites, exhausted by a rivalry neither could win, sat down and wrote the first surviving peace treaty in the history of the world, on silver tablets. There shall be peace and brotherhood between us forever, it says. And if enemies come against one, the other shall come to help. And, most remarkably for the age, each side agreed to return refugees unharmed, and their families unharmed. Forever, as the treaty defined it, held for the rest of both empires' lives. The two royal houses married, the old enemies exchanged doctors and letters. The Hittite king's widow wrote to Ramesses about the weather. A copy of that treaty hangs today, in our world, at the entrance to the United Nations in New York, the oldest exhibit in the building, the founding document of the whole long human argument that words can do what chariots cannot. It was signed by the loudest king in history, and it is the quietest thing he ever did, and it is why he earns his rest tonight. Breathe with that treaty a moment. Peace and brotherhood, forever, in silver. The oldest promise of its kind, and it was kept. And because 66 years is long enough for even granite to relax, keep one small scene from the middle of the great reign, preserved in the papyri of his scribes. The king is in his delta capital, in the cool of the evening, on the palace roof terrace among the vine trellises, and he is doing what he genuinely loved best after building, which was inspecting reports from the quarries. Progress at the temple works. A letter from the Hittite court, brotherly, gossipy, peace-holding like good masonry. Below the terrace, the city he named for himself hums toward supper, and the smell of 100 gardens comes up the walls. Around him, some fraction of his 100 children are being rounded toward bed by a staff for whom no honest chronicle spares sufficient pity. And the great one, they say, would end such evenings by the parapet, looking over the water gardens, an old athlete gone comfortable, the red hair gray now, working through his single most repeated thought, which every wall in Egypt happens to record. It is good, let it be written down. He built his own capital in the delta, Pi Ramesses, the house of Ramesses, beloved of Amun, great of victories, a garden city of canals and orchards. The poets of the day praised like a paradise, its granaries full, its harbors loud, its balconies hung with flowers. And at the far other end of his world, here at Abu Simbel, he cut this temple into the mountain with an astronomer's secret inside it. Twice a year, in February and October, and on no other mornings, the rising sun reaches down the entire length of the corridor, 60 meters into the rock, and lays its light on the statues of the gods seated in the innermost sanctuary, and on the statue of Ramesses seated among them. All year the mountain holds its breath, and on the appointed mornings, the light arrives like a letter, delivered on time for 3,200 years and counting. Beside his temple stands a second one, nearly as grand, for his queen, Nefertari, the beloved, whose tomb back in Thebes is the most beautiful painted place in all Egypt, and over whose temple door he wrote the dedication scholars still soften at. For the one for whom the sun shines. His workforce here, far up the river at the empire's southern hem, was garrison and quarrymen and painters together, and their canteen humor survives on the practice flakes of stone the artist sketched on, which the desert kept like everything else. A caricature of a foreman, all nose. A cat, walking upright, herding geese, an entire upside-down world of animal officials that Egyptian painters doodled for 3,000 years when the supervisor was elsewhere. One flake from a site like this preserves a drawing master's correction, the student's wobbly profile of a king, and beside it the master's version, effortless, exact, with a note that has been translated, loosely but defensively, as, again, all the colossi in Egypt began as somebody's again. The four giants outside took their patience from 10,000 such flakes, practice upon practice, the way all immensity is assembled, in every century, out of small corrected mornings. Tonight the twin temples stand silent above their own reflections, and the Nile slides past them southern slow, and the four colossal faces watch the east with infinite patience for one of their two mornings. The desert behind them has cooled. The stars here, far from every city, come down almost to the ground. And there is one more night to tell over these stones, 3,000 years downstream, and it belongs in this chapter because it is the greatest compliment the modern world ever paid the ancient one. In the 1960s, our own age dammed the Nile at Aswan, and the rising lake set out to drown Abu Simbel forever. And the world, fractious, cold-warring, agreeing on nothing, agreed on this. 50 nations pooled their money and their engineers, and they cut the two temples, mountain and colossi and sanctuary and all, into more than 1,000 numbered blocks, and carried them up the cliff and rebuilt them, perfectly, 65 meters higher, on an artificial mountain built to hold them, aligned so the sun would still find the sanctuary on the appointed mornings. It remains among the most extraordinary rescues ever attempted, humanity moving a mountain 2 blocks uphill to keep a promise to someone else's ancestors. Ramesses, who moved every stone he ever met, would have understood completely, and would have wanted it on a wall, and it is on this one now, in words which last longer. He sleeps tonight, the great one, in whichever of his palaces the court has settled for the season, an old lion in linen, his treaties keeping, his children beyond counting, his name cut so deep in so many places that forgetting him is no longer physically possible. When his mummy, found in the priest's cache, flew to Paris in our own time for conservation, France received it at the airport with the honors of a visiting head of state. 32 centuries after his death, soldiers presented arms. He would have found that entirely proper, and only wondered, briefly, where the wall was so it could be written down. Sleep, Majesty. The sun knows the way in. It will come down your corridor on the right morning, as always, and touch your shoulder among the gods. And as his long reign finally sets, the world around Egypt begins, slowly, to change weather. Out beyond the delta, beyond the islands, peoples are moving on the sea. The Bronze Age of the whole earth is growing old. Egypt will stand where she has always stood, and the river will hold her up. But the story is entering its long, gold afternoon, and the light in it, from here to the end, is the light of evening. There is no sadness in that. Evenings are made for what comes next. Around the year 1200 before our era, the old world of the Mediterranean grew suddenly frail, and then, within a lifetime, it fell down. Not Egypt first, and not Egypt worst, but everyone. And it is worth seeing the whole weather system gently, from above, the way we watched Rome's storms, because it explains the long calm that follows. The great Bronze Age palaces had grown into one web. Mycenae and Troy, the Hittites, Cyprus, the rich ports of the Levant, all trading, all writing to each other, all depending on each other in ways they no longer quite saw. And then, over a few decades, drought leaned on the harvests, and the harvests leaned on the kingdoms, and peoples began to move, by land and above all by sea, families and fleets together, raiders and refugees in the same boats, the records calling them helplessly the sea peoples, because no one was ever sure which peoples they were. One by one the palaces of the north and east went dark. The Hittite Empire, Egypt's old treaty partner, simply ceased. Cities that had written letters for centuries stopped answering. Around the rim of the sea, the Age of Bronze closed like a long day ending. Egypt alone, of all the great powers, stood. Ramesses III, second king of the new dynasty, met the migrations at the very mouths of the Nile, grappled their fleet in the delta marshes where sea room could not help them, and turned the flood aside. It was a real victory, dearly won, and it saved the valley. But the world Egypt had been great within was gone. The trade webs were down. The gold road south grew unquiet. The treasury thinned, and one November week in its 32nd year, in the world's first recorded labor action, the elite tomb workmen of Deir el-Medina, their rations weeks late, put down their chisels and sat down inside the mortuary temples, saying with dignity, "We are hungry." And 18 days of committees and scrambling later, the grain came, and they went back to work. Even Egypt's crises, you notice, took the form of paperwork and were resolved by granaries. The river country bent, and did not break, and settled, breathing a little more slowly, into her long afternoon. And here is the thing to carry drowsily through this chapter. The afternoon lasted 1,000 years. 1,000. Dynasties from Libya, dynasties from Nubia, governors and priest kings, Persian interludes, the map changing hands above while the country below changed hardly at all. Rome will barely last 1,000 years all told. Egypt's mere afternoon ran that long, and the reason was never armies. It was the arrangement. The river rose, the black land drank, the villages planted, the temples kept the calendar, the scribes kept the ledgers, and no conqueror in 1,000 years found anything in that arrangement worth changing, because it fed everyone, including conquerors. Egypt absorbed her masters the way the soil absorbed the flood. Within a generation, every dynasty of outsiders was building temples in the old style, writing its names in cartouches, bowing to the river's calendar. The Nubian kings, when their turn came, out-Egyptianed Egypt herself, godly, archaic, correct, and revived the pyramid for their own royal tombs at home, small, steep, handsome ones, of which Sudan tonight holds more than Egypt ever built. The pupil kingdoms love the old country the way grown children love a parent, imitatively, fiercely, better sometimes than she loved herself. Settle into the pace of that millennium. Nothing tonight requires alarm. The story from here is a river story again, slow, wide, repeating, warm. Come down into it, at Thebes, on a festival night deep in the afternoon centuries. The great temple of Karnak, largest religious building on earth, a stone forest grown by 100 kings, stands open gated tonight, torchlit, because the god is traveling. It is the Opet festival, and Amun of Karnak is being carried in his golden river barge on the shoulders of shaven priests, down the Sphinx-lined avenue to visit Luxor temple, as he does each flood season, and all Thebes is out along the way in its holiday linen. There is incense, and there are acrobats, and sistrums shivering their silver sound, and food stalls, and children on shoulders, and the bark sways past like a golden boat rowing on human water. And at the appointed stations it pauses, and ordinary people may approach the god with a yes or no question, a nod of the carried bark for yes, a dip for no. And the questions the Astrasa record are never about empires. Will my daughter recover? Should I buy the ox? Is my neighbor honest about the boundary? The god, good soul, mostly said yes. Oracles that survive 1,000 years learn what people need to hear at festivals. Stay in festival Thebes an hour, off the processional route, in the lanes where the crowd thins. A grandmother sells honeycakes from a doorway to the passing families, and has been giving away as many as she sells, to the small ones, on the ancient theology that no child should watch a god go by on an empty stomach. 2 temple musicians, off shift, sit on a key wall with their sistrums in their laps, sharing a jar and reviewing the procession like professionals. The carrying was good this year, the pausing was rushed. On the river, the ferries cross and recross with lanterns at their prows, carrying festival crowds home to the West Bank villages, and the water between the boats is a moving carpet of shaking gold. And through all of it, the great temple stands over the town, gates open, torchlit, entirely unbothered, having done this every flood season for as long as the oldest stone in it remembers, and planning, with all the confidence in the world, to do it forever. Institutions sleep well at festival time. They dream of the calendar. That is what the long afternoon sounded like, torchlight and sistrums, and yes, not decline, continuity, wearing its party clothes. The afternoon centuries also perfected the small clay business of living, and the ostrasa of the age, the potsherd people wrote on because papyrus cost money, are the fullest mailbag of the ancient world. Receipts for donkeys. A note from a boy at scribal school to his mother, mostly about lunch. A worried father's advice to a son gone north for work: be careful in the delta, right when the boats come south. An invitation to a birth feast. A neighbor returning, with thanks, a borrowed sieve. 10 centuries of dynasties changing upstairs, and downstairs the sieve comes back with thanks, eternally. Historians of the period sometimes confess a heresy, that they love the sherds more than the temples. The temples say what Egypt believed. The sherds say what it was like, and what it was like was, on the whole, and against the odds of any millennium, kindly, busy, and fond of lunch. And on 10,000 ordinary nights of those centuries, quieter than festival, the temples did their steadiest work. On the roof of the temple of Hathor at Dendera, the star priests kept their watches, generation after generation, mapping the risings, timing the year, giving each decan of stars its name and hour, and their final star map, carved in the ceiling of a roof chapel late in the story, the round zodiac of Dendera, shows the whole sky as a wheel carried by goddesses, every constellation in its place, the oldest complete picture of the heavens ever found. The men who watched those stars believed the sky was a roof over a well-run house, and their whole science was a form of housekeeping, and there has never been a more restful reason to stay up late. The afternoon shades, at its far end, toward evening. A young Macedonian will come, and after him a Greek dynasty in Alexandria, and after them Rome, whom we know. The last hieroglyph will be carved, in the end, on the island temple of Philae, far in the south, by the last priests of Isis, long after the rest of the world had forgotten how to read the signs. It says, simply, a blessing, and then the writing of the God's words, after 3,500 years of daily use, closes its eyes. But the language slept rather than died. It waited, on every wall in the valley, for a stone found at Rosetta and a young Frenchman with patience, and when Champollion finally read the old words aloud again, 14 centuries after the last priest, the first thing the recovered voice of Egypt said to the modern world was what it had always said: names and prayers and the levels of the river. The Nile tonight, deep in the afternoon of its country, carries the same 3 things: names and prayers and the flood gauge readings, station by station, moving downstream faster than the water. All is well. The river is rising on schedule. Sleep, says the oldest bureaucracy on earth. Everything has been written down. Downstream, at the edge of the delta, on a limestone ridge between the sea and the lake, surveyors of a new age are pacing out the lines of a city that does not exist yet. And offshore, on a low island, There will one day stand a tower of white stone with a fire at the top, visible 30 miles out, the first great lighthouse of the world. The story's last city is about to be founded, and it will be the brightest one of all. In the year 331 before our era, Alexander of Macedon, 25 years old and having conquered Egypt without a battle, stood on a limestone ridge between the Mediterranean and the lake, with the island of Pharos lying offshore, and saw a city in his mind so clearly that, the story goes, having no chalk to hand, he marked out its streets with barley meal from the soldiers' rations, and the seabirds came down in clouds and ate the plan, and the soothsayers, put on the spot, ruled hastily that this meant the city would feed the whole world. For once, soothsaying under pressure got it exactly right. Alexander marched on within months and never saw a single house of it, and sleeps tonight, by the account of the ancients, in a golden coffin somewhere beneath the city's heart, in a tomb the centuries have misplaced as thoroughly as they misplaced Alaric's river. But his general Ptolemy took Egypt when the conqueror's empire was carved, and crowned himself pharaoh in the old style, and made Alexandria his capital, and for the next 3 centuries the last dynasty of Egypt was Greek, and its city was the wonder of the earth. Come into its harbor tonight, in the high noon of the Ptolemies, by sea, the way everyone came, because the approach was designed as an experience, and the night approach is the finest of all. Far out, before there is any city, there is the star that does not twinkle, low on the horizon, gold and steady. Then it grows, and lifts, and becomes a fire burning impossibly high in the black air, and beneath it, slowly, the tower assembles itself out of the darkness, white marble. 3 stories, square then octagonal then round, over 100 meters of it, the Pharos, the lighthouse of Alexandria, one of the 7 wonders, and the only one with a job. Its fire burns all night at the top, thrown seaward by a great polished mirror, and sailors 30 miles out steer home on it. There will not be a taller lighthouse built by anyone for 17 centuries. Rounding it close in, the harbor opens, and the whole crescent of the city comes on at once. Lamplit terraces, palace gardens running down to the water, the causeway strung with lights between mainland and island, and the sound, even at night, of a city that talks in 6 languages and never entirely stops. But the true wonder was not the tower. It was the other building, the quiet one. The Ptolemies, alone among all the successor kings scrambling for Alexander's inheritance, decided that the ultimate weapon was knowing things, and they built the museum. The Shrine of the Muses, a palace campus of lecture halls and gardens and dining commons where scholars lived at royal expense, and its beating heart, the library, with one instruction that has never been improved on. Collect everything, every book in the world, in every language. Agents ranged the ports buying whole libraries. Every ship entering this harbor was searched, by law, not for weapons but for scrolls, which were borrowed, copied by the library scribes, and returned, usually the copy, the library keeping the original with a collector's tender ruthlessness. At its height it held, the estimates say, 500,000 scrolls, the memory of the whole species to date, catalogued, shelved, breathing quietly in one building by the sea. And in its halls over 3 centuries, the human mind had one of its great sleepless nights. Euclid assembled geometry here into the elements, the most reprinted secular book in history, still teaching tonight. Eratosthenes, the librarian himself, measured the circumference of the whole earth with a well, a shadow, and geometry, and came within a whisker of the true figure, 17 centuries before anyone sailed around it to check. Aristarchus proposed, quietly, against all common sense, that the earth might go around the sun, and filed the idea, where it waited 1800 years for company. Herophilus mapped the human nervous system. Archimedes studied here and wrote home. The heavens were catalogued, the classics were edited into the texts we still read, and grammar itself, the notion that language has an anatomy, was invented down the hall. Half of every schoolroom on earth tonight traces, one way or another, to that one lamp-lit corridor. Let the library settle you, as it settled everyone who worked in it. 500,000 scrolls make a particular silence, the silence of everything having been written down, which is the deepest institutional form of the feeling you are after tonight. Nothing is lost. It is all on the shelf. You can put the day down. Somewhere it is cataloged. Give the library one night scene of its own from the working years. It is late, and the halls are closed, but scholarship has never respected closing, and in one lamplit alcove the geographer on duty is measuring the earth. Eratosthenes has had word from the south, from Syene by the first cataract, that at noon on Midsummer Day, the sun stands so exactly overhead there that it lights the bottom of a deep well and a vertical stick throws no shadow. In Alexandria, on the same noon, a stick does throw a shadow of a certain small angle. He has the angle. He has the distance between the cities, paced out by the royal surveyors. And tonight, with a lamp in the geometry down the hall, he closes the sum. If that angle is a 50th of a circle, the whole earth is 50 times that distance around. He writes the figure. It is, within a small politeness, correct. No ship will confirm it for 1700 years. He blows out the lamp and goes to bed, a man who has just measured the planet with a stick in a well, and outside, the lighthouse burns on, guiding sailors around a world whose size is now quietly on file. Over this city, at the story's end, reigned the last pharaoh of all, and she deserves better than her legend, so give her the Knight's Fair version. Cleopatra VII was Greek by blood, the seventh of her name in a dynasty of formidable women, and she was the first of her whole 300-year house who troubled to learn Egyptian. She spoke, the ancients say, 9 languages, and needed no interpreter with anyone. The coins she struck, which are the only faces of her we certainly have, show not the fabled siren, but a sharp, intelligent, hook-nosed sovereign, and the sources agree it was the voice and the mind that did the famous conquering. She ruled 21 years, held her inheritance together with wit and nerve in the shadow of a Rome that swallowed kingdoms yearly, chose her allies from among its strongest men, and when the last throw failed, and Rome's cold young future emperor stood over her city, she declined, with royal thoroughness, to be marched in anyone's triumph. She studied her death like one of her languages, the stories say, and took it on her own schedule, dressed as a queen. Egypt became a Roman province, the personal estate of the emperors, the granary of the empire we visited in our last story. The wheat that fed sleeping Rome in episode 1, you now know the far end of. It came down this river, past every place we have drifted tonight. And Alexandria at night, outside the library walls, was the first city of the world in the modern sense, the first place where everyone was from somewhere else and stayed anyway. Greek merchants, Egyptian priests, Jewish scholars whose community here would produce the first great translation of their scriptures, Nubians, Arabs, Indians off the monsoon ships. All of it packed along the boulevards, quarrelsome by day in the manner of port cities, and at night, from the palace terraces, one single sound, the sea, and one single smell, salt and lamp oil in spice warehouses, the smell every great port has worn since. In the street of the glassblowers, the furnaces glow all night at banked idle, and a night shift apprentice practices gathers of molten glass, turning, because Alexandrian glass goes to every table on the Middle Sea, and the turning wrist cannot be taught by daylight alone. The lighthouse lays its long beam over the roofs at each slow rotation of the mirror, and the whole mixed, arguing, brilliant city sleeps under the moving light like children under a parent's passing lamp. The library's own ending was long, slow, and multiple, part fire, part neglect, part the simple entropy of empires changing hands, and scholars still argue the shares. Let them argue. What is sure is that nothing burned that had not first been copied, at least in part, into 100 other cities, because the library's deepest invention was not the building. It was the habit: collect, copy, catalog, pass on. The habit survived in Pergamon and Rhodes, in Constantinople, in the House of Wisdom at Baghdad, in monastery scriptoria of the long dark of the Middle Ages, hand to hand, like the lamp in the roadside shrine, in every library on earth tonight, every shelf in every town with its lamp on late, is that fire, still burning, 30 miles out, still bringing sailors home. The Pharos itself stood for 1600 years, patched and repatched, until the earthquakes of the Middle Ages finally brought the great stones down into the harbor shallows, where divers find them still, drowned colossi in the green light. A fortress stands on the footprint now, built of the lighthouse's own blocks. The harbor it lit is still a harbor. The city Alexandria drew in barley is still, tonight in our world, home to 5 million sleepers, and its long seafront Cornish glitters against the same dark sea, and boys fish from the rocks below the fortress at the exact point where the fire stood. Cities die into other cities. The light moves house and stays lit. Sleep, Alexandria, polyglot and shining. Of all the cities in these two stories, you were the one built on purpose to be wonderful, and it worked. And now, the river turns us gently back, south and inland and backward in time all at once, away from the loud sea, into the deep, dry silence where this civilization keeps its heart. The desert has been waiting all night, patient as ever, holding the tombs and the temples in the dark. The story is going home to the sand now, for its long sleep, and the sand has kept everything. There is an hour, on any night in the Egyptian desert, when the wind lies down completely, and the silence arrives, and it is unlike the silence of anywhere else on earth. No leaves to move, no water to speak. The stars burn without flickering, the sand holds the day's last warmth like a body, and the stillness is so entire that travelers in every century have reported the same discovery. You can hear your own heart, keeping its small watch, and nothing else at all. Into that silence, over the centuries after Cleopatra, Egypt's old world lay slowly down. Not violently. Egypt's endings almost never were. Rome ruled, then Constantinople, then new faiths and new tongues came up the river, each settling over the last like silt, and the temples closed gently, one by one, the way shops close at the end of a market day. At Philae, on her island in the far south, Isis kept the lights on longest of all, her priests still writing their island letters, still keeping the festivals, into the 6th century of our era, the last open sanctuary of the old religion anywhere on earth. When it closed at last, by imperial order, the priests went home to their villages, and the goddess's statue watched the river through empty doorways, and the old gods of Egypt, who had been on duty for 4,000 years, were finally, all of them, off the clock. Think of it that way, because it is the true way. Not defeat, retirement. The longest shift ever worked, complete. And then the great sleep began, and it is the most peaceful stretch in this entire series, 1,000 years and more in which almost nothing happens to old Egypt except preservation. The sand, which had always wanted the temples back, took them gently, at a rate of inches per decade, and in taking them, saved them. It rose over the fallen columns and the painted walls, filled the courts, buried the avenues, and sealed the colors away from the sun. Wind-blown, patient, absolutely dry, it is the finest packing material in the world, and Egypt was packed in it, whole, like the treasures in the boy king's rooms. Villages built on the warm mounds over the temples, their houses riding the roofs of hypostyle halls, generations living out their whole lives 30 feet above a sanctuary, growing beans over the head of Ramesses. At Abu Simbel, the 4 colossi vanished to the chin, then to the crown, and travelers' drawings from the early modern centuries show just one giant face, serene, chin deep in a dune, asleep in the most literal way stone can manage. The dead of Egypt slept best of all. In the painted halls under the Theban hills, in the numberless honeycombed cliffs of the Middle Valley, in pit and shaft and chapel from the Delta to Nubia, They lay in the dark by the uncounted million, the largest sleeping population on earth, and the desert kept them all. The old promises held better than anyone had dared write them. Not only kings, the miller and the boatman and the grandmother under her wooden stars, their names on their coffin lids still legible, their bread and beer formulas still asking passers-by, in a script no passerby could read anymore, to say the words. The words went unsaid for 50 generations. The sleepers did not mind. Their whole theology had prepared them for exactly this, the long night with the sun traveling elsewhere, certain to return. No dead in history have ever waited so calmly. Let their calm be lent to you, because it is the professional calm of experts. Nobody was ever better at night than the Egyptians. They are the ones who painted the inside of the coffin lid with stars, remember, so that even the longest sleep would have a sky. Above the sleepers, on the surface, the living centuries were kind in their own accidental ways. Pilgrims and travelers came and wondered, and scratched their names, which was rude, and dated the wonder for us, which was useful. Medieval Cairo grew great a few miles from the drowsing Sphinx, and its scholars wrote treatises puzzling honestly over the monuments, and its poets used the pyramids the way poets use the moon, as something permanent to stand grief against. Fellahin farmed the black land exactly as their remotest ancestors had, the same crops on the same calendar behind the same water, so that Egypt's daily life became its own museum, unlabeled, and the shape of the oxen and the shape of the boats and the gesture of the sower were the reliefs, walking around live. The river rose and fell 1,000 times, unsupervised by any pharaoh, and managed perfectly well, which would have surprised the pharaohs alone. And the sleepers had their visitors, across the long night, and the visitors left notes, and the notes are their own museum of the human voice. Greek mercenaries, 26 centuries ago, scratched their names on the leg of a colossus at Abu Simbel, the oldest datable graffiti of their civilization, soldiers far from home doing what soldiers far from home have always done. Roman tourists wrote on the tombs in the Valley of the Kings, "I saw, and I marveled, hundreds of times over, the ancient world's 5-star review." A Roman prefect climbed the Great Pyramid, we know because he said so, on the stone. And one traveler, at the singing Colossus of Memnon, which used to sound a note at dawn when the sun warmed its cracked stone, wrote only that he had heard it, and the hour, and his mother's name. Every age assumes it invented the urge to stand before something old and leave a word. The words are stacked 40 centuries deep here, and the oldest say exactly what the newest say. I was here. It was more than I could say. Remember me to it. Out at Giza, the Sphinx spent most of these centuries asleep to the neck in sand, only the great weathered face above the surface, watching the east. Once, in the New Kingdom itself, a prince hunting in the desert had napped in its shadow at noon, and dreamed the Sphinx spoke, promising him the throne if he would clear the sand away. And he woke, and cleared it, and became king, and set a stone telling the story between the paws, where it stands tonight. It is the oldest recorded dream in the world with a date and a witness, and it set the pattern for everything after. In this country, the monuments recruit the living, in their sleep, to uncover them. The whole modern science of Egyptology is, in a sense, that dream still being obeyed. Even the language, in those quiet centuries, did not truly die. It changed clothes and stayed on, as Coptic, the old tongue of the valley written now in Greek letters, the direct child of the pharaoh's speech, and it lived in the villages and then in the monasteries, prayed in, sung in, argued in, for another 1,500 years. It is chanted still tonight in our world, in the Coptic churches of Egypt, the liturgy carrying sounds Ramesses would recognize, the last running water of a river of speech 7,000 years long. When the decipherers finally needed a key to the hieroglyph sounds, it was Coptic that gave it to them, the living granddaughter identifying the grandmother's handwriting. Nothing in this country is ever entirely over, it only lowers its voice. Because the world, at the far end of the long sleep, began to remember. A stone found by soldiers at Rosetta, with one decree in 3 scripts. A young man in Paris, Champollion, who had readied himself with a 12 languages, seeing at last how the signs breathed, and running through the streets to his brother's office to say, "I have it," and fainting there, worn through by joy. The wall of silence between the sleepers and the living, 14 centuries thick, came down in that one afternoon in 1822, and the millions of waiting names on every coffin and cliff and column in the valley became sayable again, all at once. The old funerary texts had begged the passerby for one thing only: "Speak my name, that I may live." The passerby had finally learned how. Every museum placard on earth, every guidebook, every child sounding out Nefertari at a display case tonight, is that request being granted at industrial scale forever. The desert silence tonight, then, is not emptiness. It is a full house, sleeping late, beginning to be called, name by name, gently, by a new morning. The excavator's lamps are coming up the valley roads in the last chapter of this night, and the most famous door in archaeology is waiting under its 40 feet of chips, with the flowers still on the coffin. But not quite yet. Let the sleepers have one more unbroken hour, the hour you are entering yourself. The heart keeps its small watch. The sand holds its warmth. The stars stand still over the whole length of the valley, from the drowned stones of the Pharos to the 4 quiet giants chin deep in the southern dunes. And nothing in the oldest country on earth is awake now except the river, which never sleeps and never needs to, and has the watch. November 1922, in the Valley of the Kings, and the desert nights have turned cold. An Englishman named Howard Carter has spent 6 seasons searching this exhausted valley for a tomb most experts insist is not there, and his patron's patience is 1 season from its end. And then, on the 4th of November, under the ruins of ancient workmen's huts, under the stone chips dumped 32 centuries before, a workman's brush finds a step cut in the rock. Then another, then a stairway, descending, and at the bottom of it, a sealed door, and pressed into its ancient plaster, again and again, the stamp of the royal necropolis. The jackal, over 9 captives. The door no one had opened. Carter filled the stairway back in, set guards on it, and sent his patron in England a telegram of magnificent restraint. At last have made wonderful discovery in valley, a magnificent tomb with seals intact. Recovered same for your arrival. Congratulations. And then he waited, nearly 3 weeks, beside the buried stairway for his friend to travel from England, because some doors you do not open without the person who believed in them. Hold that detail. In the most impatient moment of his life, the man waited, so the opening could be shared. It is the politest cliffhanger in the history of archaeology, and the desert, which had waited 3,000 years, waited 3 more weeks without comment. On the 26th of November, with the stairway cleared again and the passage emptied, Carter came to a second sealed door and made a small hole in its upper corner and put a candle through against the escaping ancient air and looked in. Behind him in the dark corridor stood his patron, Lord Carnarvon, who could bear it only a moment before asking the question that has gone into every telling since. "Can you see anything?" And Carter, candle in the hole, his eyes adjusting to the gleam of gold coming back out of the darkness, strange animals, statues, everything doubled in shadow, gave the answer the whole world now knows by heart. Yes, wonderful things. What the candle found was everything. The only royal burial of Egypt ever recovered nearly whole, the 4 gilded shrines nested like the petals of a golden bud, the 3 coffins one inside another, the innermost of solid gold, and upon the face of the young king, the mask that has become the face of ancient Egypt itself, gold and lapis, calm beyond all argument. And everywhere, in the crowded little rooms, not treasure only but tenderness. His childhood chair, his board games, a lock of his grandmother's hair, kept in a nested coffin of its own. Loaves of bread, jars of honey, still golden. 2 tiny coffins holding his stillborn daughters, buried with him so he would not travel unaccompanied. And on the great coffin, dried but recognizable after 32 centuries, the little wreath of cornflowers and olive leaves, laid there at the last moment, the flowers we watched dry through all of chapter 7, delivered at last to the only audience they were ever picked for. The excavators, hard men of a hard profession, wrote afterward that it was the flowers that undid them. 3,000 years, wrote one, lost their meaning in that moment. We felt like intruders at a funeral of yesterday. Breathe slowly with this, because it is the still point of the whole night. Everything this civilization ever claimed about sleep turned out, in this one sealed room, to be true. The night can be that long, and the sleeper still safe. The dark can be that deep, and still kind. The door held. The flowers kept. The name, spoken again after such a silence, lived. The clearing of the little tomb took 10 years. That too belongs to the night's ledger, because it is the part of the story nobody dramatizes and everybody should sleep on. 10 years for 4 small rooms. Every object photographed in place before it was touched, numbered, sketched, its position mapped to the centimeter. The delicate things, the garlands, the linens, the chariot leather, conserved on site in a neighboring empty tomb fitted out as a laboratory, patiently, season after season, while the world's press fumed at the pace. Carter, whatever his failings, would not be hurried, and because he would not, we have it all, down to the composition of the resins and the species of the flowers. It was, in the end, the same work the Necropolis crews had done 32 centuries earlier, in reverse, with the same care, the unpacking as loving as the packing. The boy was tended into his tomb by professionals, and tended out of it by professionals, and between the two teams, across 3,000 years, there is a handshake that needs no translation. And so, with the door standing open at last, count what remains of Egypt, drowsily, coin by coin, the way we counted Rome. The monuments remain, beyond every other civilization's dreaming. The pyramid still holds its ancient record, the largest of all tombs, the last of the 7 wonders. The temples came up out of the sand with their colors on, and tourists tonight in our world walk Karnak's forest of columns by moonlight, exactly as you have. The 4 giants of Abu Simbel sit on their rebuilt mountain, faces to the east, waiting for one of their 2 mornings, which still arrive on time. The inventions remain, woven so deep into ordinary life that they have stopped being visible. The calendar of 365 days is theirs, passed through Rome to your kitchen wall. The 24-hour day is theirs, born on those temple roofs among the star clocks. Paper takes its very name from papyrus, the reed of that river. Geometry was annually reborn in their flooded fields. Medicine wrote its first careful case notes in their language, and the wedding ring worn on the 4th finger of the left hand. Over the vein, the Egyptians said, ran straight to the heart, is their idea, renewing itself several thousand times a day, worldwide, at altars that have never heard of them. The tomb itself, in our own tonight, keeps a reduced and gentle state. The treasures live in Cairo now, in the great museum, where the golden mask holds its room the way the moon holds a clear night. But the boy himself was never taken. He is the only pharaoh still lying in his own tomb in the valley, in a climate-controlled case in the outer chamber, home, while the tourists file through at a respectful murmur and the guards, between groups, sit in the painted quiet. The valley outside empties at dusk, as it always has. The horn takes the last light. Merit Sager, she who loves silence, resumes her portfolio. And down in the small rooms where the flowers were, the oldest resident of the world's most visited grave sleeps on in place, 33 centuries into the arrangement and unbothered yet, the only person in this entire story who is still exactly where his loved ones tucked him. The images remain, deeper than memory. Every sphinx in every garden, every obelisk in every capital, Paris, London, Rome, New York, each one a genuine needle of Aswan granite, carried off in the age of empires and standing tonight in foreign squares like tall, patient exchange students who long ago stopped expecting to go home. The very shape of majesty, the throne, the crook, the flail, the profile, the gold against lapis blue, when the world wants to say forever with a straight face, it still reaches first for Egypt's costume box. The words remain, riding inside other words. Ebony is Egyptian, Hebony, riding through Greek into every language that ever traded south. Ivory came the same road. Oasis is Egyptian. Chemistry itself descends, by most accounts, from Kemet, the Black Land, Egypt's own name for herself, so that every laboratory on Earth works, etymologically, in Egyptian soil. Adobe, the humble sun-dried brick of the American Southwest, walked out of the Egyptian word for brick, through Coptic, through Arabic, through Spain, across an ocean, to build houses in a desert the pharaohs never heard of, which would not have surprised them in the least. Bricks travel, words are bricks. The valley has been exporting both for 5,000 years. And the river remains, and was always the whole story. Dammed now, measured, mapped from space, it still rises out of Africa and lays its silver length down the same valley, past the same villages under the same palms. And the fields on either side are the same fields, in the oldest continuous agriculture on earth. And the fella sleeping tonight on his roof above the Black Land is doing what has been done on that exact spot, without one missed year, for 7,000 years. Empires were the river's guests. Some stayed 3,000 years, some 300. The house goes on. The house was always the point. So let it all go now, gently, the whole golden length of it. Let the drifting boat go, and the star carrying water. Let the crews go, the friends of Khufu, home to their villages with their stories. Let the white city go, and its sleeping ducks, and the water clock leaking lawful time. Let Sonoe go, home at last, entirely safe. Let the queen's ships go, riding the long swell south, watering the little trees. Let the roofless city of the sun go, and the plaster faces on the shelf, and the boy behind his sealed door, with his flowers, waiting for the candle. Let the treaty go, keeping its silver peace, and the library go, breathing its 500,000 scrolls, and the lighthouse go, burning for sailors not yet born. Let the last queen go, in her own time, in her own way, and the priests of the island go home to their villages, the long shift worked, the lamps handed on. They are all in the west now, as the old texts say, all gone into the beautiful west, where the sun goes at night, and the sun, you will have noticed, has never once failed to come back. That was Egypt's whole secret, told at last, and it was never a secret at all. It is painted inside the lid of every coffin in every night sky in the world. The dark is a boat, not a grave. You board it every evening, and it carries you, and it brings you home. Good night, traveler. The river has the watch. It has had the watch for 7,000 years and has never once been relieved, and never once asked to be. Breathe out slowly, one more time, and step aboard. And sleep.